All right, so we have here another world champion, Petrosian.
Petrosian, yeah, he was one of the most interesting world champions because he was playing at the first glance like this, a very quiet position, but he was very dangerous because his technique was absolutely excellent and he could win even with the smallest edge, I mean, he had, very small advantage, he could win against anybody with white, with black, doesn't matter, And he preferred to play like this because he was sure that by having such a technique, he was, having a very good chance to win against anybody,
He was like a anaconda snake,
well, a little bit like this, I mean. And we were playing this game in the last game of the Super Tournament of Moscow in 81, which was called the Stars Tournament. It was probably the biggest tournament, the strongest tournament of the last 50 years in that period, Very, very strong tournament.
So all the stars were playing here?
Well, the stars because all the players were fantastic players, I mean, 8 Soviet players, including 4 or 5 world champions in that time, Kasparov, Karpov, Smyslov, Petrosian, and so on. And the rest of the field from the Soviet players were Belyavsky, Polgaevsky, I mean, super players, all of them,
Yeah.
Geller and so on. You can imagine, watch a tournament where Geller was last, The last place was Grandmaster Geller. I mean, super. Yeah. I mean, fantastic player. All of them.
Yes.
And the force of the tournament was also unusual because we had more of a Soviet championship than an international tournament. I mean, 8 Soviet players and 6, players from some other countries. And of course, the tournament was very dangerous because any player could be last or pre-last in such a field,
Yeah.
And okay, we played our game in the last round, and Petrosian had to try to win because if he won, he was even with me finally in the, in this tournament, in the standings later on.
Yes.
But if I could win against Petrosian, somehow in the last round with black is very difficult. But if somehow I could win, I could take the second place together with Kasparov, and that would be a fantastic result, for any player.
Yeah.
And okay, the game was very sharp and full of surprises. You will see.
But who won that tournament?
Draw. I mean, Karpov won.
Karpov.
Yeah. In this time, he was world champion, and he won. I mean, he deserved to win. He played very well, and he won. Clearly without any problem. I mean. It was probably one of his best results in his life, This one, Moscow 81, yes, this one. So, okay, we have Nimzovich variation here, the opening, and this is one of the main lines that Petrosian played. And the knight e2 is the alternative. Normally, white can play also knight f3. This is the most important line for white with knight f3. But knight e2 is also dangerous, and you have to be very careful how to play with black. Now, the move order is very important for black, So after knight e2, you play d5, so a3, and now you take, of course, in c3. Now, first of all, you are forced to take in c3, because in some other lines, with the knight in f3, for instance,
yes,
you could move the bishop away, let's say, for instance, here, with the knight in f3, d5, yeah? And if now a3, you could go back to a5. Why? Because if now white takes in c5, after bishop takes c3, black is better in some structure, the structure for black, the pawn structure is better for black, clearly.
Is this one even so?
Yeah, here, yeah.
Yes.
But with the knight in e2, this is not possible, because now if you go back to a5, for instance, in our game.
Yes.
The knight was in e2.
Yes.
So, yeah, if you don't take in c3 and you go back to c5 to a5, after d takes c5, you lost the pawn, and you are lost. Because if you now take there, he takes back with the knight, and you are pawn down for nothing, and your position is hopeless. Mm-hmm. This is first of all the big difference,
Yeah.
So you have to take in c3, Okay, and now he takes back with the pawn. If he took back with the knight, the game is more or less even. We see very quickly, instead of b takes c3, he takes with the knight. And now you take in d4, yeah, in d4, he takes in d4. And now after knight c6, has to do something. If he castle, he loses the pawn d4. It's not good. If he plays bishop e3, you take back in c4, takes in c4, b6, bishop b7, the game is even. No problem for black. So okay, he has to try to have some small edge by playing b takes c3. Okay, he took with b, I took b6, I played b6, he took in d5, I took with the pawn, and he castled. And now, looking at the position, I played bishop a6 is very good move, and the most normal. I mean, you have to trade the bishop from d3, which is a very strong bishop. And looking at this position, I remembered a famous game Botvinnik against Alekhine, against Capablanca, pardon. And that was a well-known game, and the game was Botvinnik against Capablanca, one of the most famous in the chess history, because I mean, for Capablanca to lose in such a way was very rare. And
So Capablanca was with black and
was
he
black.
lost against
He lost
Botvinnik?
against Botvinnik, yes. In 38, the
Same
Avro
position.
tournament. Yeah, the same position up to now. I mean,
In
later on
38?
I changed the plan for black. So
Which tournament? Which tournament?
that was Avro tournament in 38. That was the most important tournaments in chess history and the most famous one. So, okay, now he played...
So you're playing like Capablanca.
I was
yes.
playing like Capablanca until now. I mean,
Yes.
the same position until now. Well, everything is theory. Okay, and after bishop a6, Botvinnik took, I think, in a6. He took, and then later on, in one moment, he played the move c4, trying to close the position, and it seemed that everything is okay for black. But later on, he was a little bit worse, and a little bit worse, and so on. And finally, the game was over, much later by a very fine combination from Botvinnik. I mean, he won in a brilliant way. So now the plan from Capablanca was more or less, unclear, let's say,
Yes.
shaky a little bit.
Shaky.
Yeah. So Petrosian wanted to have the same position with a tempo more for white. I mean, he played f3, and the idea is now if you take in d3, takes in d3, to come later on very quickly to this move e4, having the possibility to open the game with the move e4 later on.
Yeah.
And now, looking at the position, I realized that we had almost the same position from Botvinnik Capablanca, and if I wanted to do something new, it was here. Now I had to find a good plan for black. So I didn't play like Capablanca with the same idea, c4, trying to close the position and so. So I opened the position, and we had some different position. We'll see. So I took in d3, he took in d3, and now knight c6, normal move.
So Capablanca here played c4?
C4, but it was a little bit different. But the idea was with the move c4 later on. So I play knight c6, knight g3. Okay, now he tries to come a little bit later to e4, Plays rook a2, rook e2, bishop b2, and so on, and finally e4. This is the idea, to come to e4. So you have to react very quickly. So I play queen d7, okay, bishop b2. Again, the idea is to play immediately e4, if possible. So now what to do? So now rook d8, okay. For the moment, e4 is not possible, not yet, because he loses a pawn in d4. We attack 3 times in d4 later on, So he plays rook a1, and now he prepares again the move e4. And now is the moment. Now we change the plan. We took in d4. He takes with c, because of course now, to have still the possibility to move later on e4. If he arrives in good conditions to e4, white is better, clearly better.
But why is better?
Because now, for instance, bad move like this is to play, okay, rook e8, for instance, rook
Yes.
f e8. No?
Yes.
Rook after rook e8, white plays e4. And now what can you play with black? If you take to e4, it's very unpleasant because he takes back with the pawn,
Yes.
and he threatens d5 and e5, and somehow also knight f5, and very, very unpleasant for black,
So black has basically
yeah, you have to be
only
very
defense.
careful. You can lose in a brilliant way here with black, So,
Okay.
So what to do? If rook e8 is not good, you have to find a very nice plan, Knight e8. This is very, very strong move. It's probably the best move of the whole game. The idea from black is very clear. I mean, he comes with the knight from f6 to e8 to d6, c4. And when the knight arrives to c4, black controls all the central squares. And he has a better position. And now attacking problems on the other side, on the king side. So the whole plan is very interactive, very good for black. And after our game from Moscow, the game is, the whole variation is a game playable for black. It's very important, for the chess history.
So improve Capablanca
I improved
variation.
clearly the game
Of Capablanca.
Of Capablanca, yes. Knight
Yeah,
e8.
because it looks so unintuitive to come with the
Well, but
knight.
the knight is a very good idea because the knight from f6 will somehow has some problems later on. If you give the good possibility, white can even sacrifice in f6 the rook, and then give you a check somehow with the knight in f6. And again, very, very unpleasant, see. But now the knight comes clearly from e8 to d6 and c4. And black ignores the threat e4 because you don't threaten anything with e4 now in this position. If, for instance, he played e4, no? He played e4, and after knight d6, okay. Now what to do? If you take in d5, you are clearly worse with white. After e takes d5,
Yes.
knight e7, and you recapture the pawn and you are better with black. If you arrive with the knight in d4, in d5 is forever here in such a position, So it's clearly better for black. So taking in d5 is a clear mistake. Is a mistake. No? But instead, if he doesn't play, knight d6, and he played back to c1.
Yes.
Instead, if he played e5, after knight c4, black again is okay. It's no threat. The knight in c4 is very good. So we have some kind of position, almost the same, after bishop c1 also. So bishop c1, knight c4. Again, we have the same position.
Yeah.
If white now continues with d5, we have the position that we saw before. No?
Yeah.
So now he played f4. And again, if you don't do something quickly, if he has time, for instance, to play e5 and f5, then the game is very dangerous for black, if you let him do it. So you have to fix the position somehow and have the possibility when he arrives to e5 to have the possibility to play yourself f5. So after f4, I play the move f6, also very strong. Now again has the possibility to, to try to move something and push e5. If he pushes e5, after f5, black is clearly better. If you can have such a, fixed position, I mean, you control the square e6, then you put a knight, for instance, in e6, then it's fantastic for black,
Because
you have control.
You block and you also
You block
attack
and you have control on d4 and f4, control c file, control the e file. Black is okay, very well. And for the moment, the bishop from c1 doesn't have any activity. He doesn't do anything, That is very important, So here he proposed draw, and I had to think to accept or not, after f6. Okay, it was again a little bit against the rules, to propose draw when you didn't realize your move, But okay, he was world champion. We had a very good relationship. Okay, and here he asked me if I want draw, in such a position after f6, and I had to think a little bit. I thought for about 20 minutes to accept or not. But the problem was the following. If I could win, I told you before, if I could win this game, the second place together with Kasparov would be a sensational, a fantastic result, you know. But if I didn't lose the game and if I made the draw, again, the result would be very, very good. The undefeated in such a fantastic
Because you
tournament.
didn't lose any
I
game.
didn't lose any game. I beat
Lose any game.
Timan and I had the draws against everybody else, you know. And almost big majority of the Soviet players I played with black, which is also very difficult, you know. So okay, finally somehow I accepted draw, and we analyzed a little bit later together with Petrosian and myself, and we agreed that black was clearly a little bit better and had some chances to try to play for a win. And therefore, he proposed draw. This is clear. But the big importance of this game is everything I told you before, that we could improve the game of Capablanca. This is exceptional. And of course, everybody was satisfied, everybody was happy. And we celebrated a little bit later on because it was his birthday, you know. Petrosian, nobody knew, but it was his small surprise for everybody else there.
Where did you celebrate?
Well, at his home, of course.
At his home?
Yes, yes.
But he was living in
Moscow, yeah.
in Moscow?
Well, everybody was there. Karpov, Kasparov, everybody, you know, I mean, all the big names and so on. But relating to our game, that was the small story, you know, about the game. The game is, okay, well known, and now the game is playable. The whole variation is playable for black, you know.
After this?
It's good again for black, you know.
Yeah.
So it's okay. No. Capablanca would be happy, you know.
Yes, to know that, or maybe unhappy because he missed.
No, it happens. Even the strongest players can have some bad days or some mistakes and so on. Yeah.
All right, great.
The game was not too long. I mean, it was short, let's say, you know.
Yeah.
Or short enough, but very, very, very interesting and of great importance for chess.
For theory.
Chess variation, yeah.
Yeah.
Chess history.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Gheorghiu.
Petrosian.
Thank you.
You're welcome.